Hi, I'm Richard Morais, Senior Minister at Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center, and I want to thank you for visiting our website and for tuning in to today's message. If you feel inspired by today's talk, I really encourage you to make a donation by hitting that button below and making a contribution to this ministry. It'll allow us to continue these messages online and to do the great work we do here at Unity of Phoenix, which is to inspire people to live better lives. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for your support, and we hope to see you at a Sunday real soon.
All right, you ready? So, are you an unconscious lover or a conscious lover? Big crowd response. This is just going to be a great morning all the way around. So, how many of you know that this place is about practicing spiritual principles? Now, when you say practicing spiritual principle, what's the key word in that sentence? Practice, right? So when it comes to practicing spiritual principles, we either practice them consciously or we just do them unconsciously. How many of you can think of a time in your life where you were solely living unconsciously? Right? And you wonder why it didn't work very well. Right? Because if we're just doing the same things over and over and over again unconsciously, it's really hard to see any kind of benefit or improvement. Like it doesn't really matter. That what this place is about is helping people live spiritual principles consciously. And if you're living them consciously, then there's always room for expansion and growth because you practice them in better and better ways. So how many of you knew that love was a spiritual practice? Great. And as a spiritual practice, you actually have to practice loving. That the idea is that we're actually supposed to be better at loving today than we were yesterday. We're supposed to be better at loving this week than we were last week. That we're supposed to get better at loving. So that we're actually supposed to get better at opening our hearts to loving the people around us. Because if we just do it unconsciously, we think, well, I'm a loving person. Right? How much is the world going to heal if we're just doing this unconsciously? I don't think a lot. So this summer, what I wanted to do was dedicate a whole summer, 7 weeks in a row, to focus on love. And you think, wow, that's a lot. Boy, that's a lot, right? But the idea is that when we really bring love up into our consciousness, when we really look at it, when we really begin to practice it, we realize that some of us could be doing a much better job at really opening our heart to love. So we've been, week after week, we've been looking at these spiritual principles. And today what I want to focus on is kind of an addition to where we went last week. Last week we brought up forgiveness because forgiveness is an act of love. And I said that there are really two aspects of forgiveness. The first aspect of forgiveness is spiritual forgiveness, and spiritual forgiveness is actually easier. Why is that? Because when you're connected to the infinite, it's actually easier to forgive. If you're connected with all that God is and somebody steals 20 cents from you, are you going to have a hard time over that? No, because you're connected to all that is. You're connected to the infinite. So you find yourself being much more generous in your forgiveness. The other aspect of forgiveness we talked about last week was the human side of forgiveness. And the human side of forgiveness tends to keep track and judge and go into our drama and our stories and all that we do. And the human side of us, it's much harder for us to forgive because we wanted everything, and the key word we looked at last week was fair. And what over and over again, what I want you to see is that there's these two levels to life that we're living simultaneously. The spiritual side and the human side. Now, is it sometimes harder to be in the spiritual world or the human world? Which would you want to guess? The human world, right? We bump at the human level as spirits, right? You ever been to a hippie concert? Woo, right? Right? So what we want to do, right, is actually get a little bit wiser in our spiritual practice over and over again. So today we're going to look at love. So what's the spiritual aspect of love? One of the things we've read over and over again, that God is love, right? So the spiritual aspect of love is that love is a spiritual vibration. It's a spiritual energy. But the only way that it actually flows into our life is when our hearts are open. So we began this series on really looking at how much of the time is your heart actually open, and how much love are you downloading on a regular basis, and how expanded are you willing for your heart to be to bring more love in the world. Because right now, the whole premise of this idea is that right now in our country, we are in a time of conflict. Can we say conflict? We're in a time of conflict, right? And the reality is that do we need more love or less love during this time? More love, right? And where are the channels of love? All around us. We're it, right? So if we're going to bring more love onto this planet, if we're going to bring more love into our country, if we're going to bring more love into our families, it has to come through us. And so it really is a practice then of every day saying, how much am I willing to open my heart to this moment, to this situation, to this person, and how much love am I willing to download in this moment? So I want you to practice. You ready to practice right now? Okay, I want you to think of someone or something that you love. And I want you to see, put your hands on your chest if you will, and just see if you can feel your heart open. Right? This would be a conscious act of loving. To see if you can consciously choose to open your heart right now. Now the question becomes, how much of your day, how much of your week are you downloading divine love? Is it like a minute a day? Is it an hour a day? How much love are you downloading? Because I want you to see that your heart has this infinite capacity. Could you feel your heart open? Could everybody feel what it feels like when divine love is flowing? Because it's it's miraculous that you can feel that, right? Because we talk about our heart, but when our heart is beating, that's a physical organ, correct? But it's also a spiritual organ. That in the center of our being, in the center of our chest, we have a spiritual organ that is the gateway to the infinite love of God that we can literally feel, at least most people can literally feel with their hands when their heart is open, when love is flowing. And the thing that I want really for you today is just to become conscious. How many of you have a person in your life that it's touchy, it's tricky for you to open your heart to? Does everybody have one? I got an uncle I'll let you borrow if you need help with somebody in your life. Right? Because I want you to see over and over again, right? That's a conscious practice. That when you go to work, do you make a conscious decision to open your heart? When you come home after a long day, do you make a conscious decision to open your heart? When you're driving through your neighborhood or doing what you do you make a conscious decision to open your heart? Not just to bless the world, but who else does it bless when you open your heart? Me, you, everybody, right? That over and over again, what I want you to be is just conscious of the power of love that you can download in any situation. You know, many of the great spiritual teachers talked about how love is the element that allows us to prosper our lives. If you're in business, if you're working for yourself, or even if you're working for somebody else, what I want you to really see is the more that you can download love, the more that you can bring love to your work over and over again, are people drawn to that or do they run from that? They're drawn to that. That over and over again, what I want you to just see is how wide can you open your heart to download the infinite in every situation. I open my heart all the way. Let's say that with me, okay? I open my heart all the way. One more, much bigger, much stronger. I open my heart all the way. Now, does your ego want you to do that? No! Your ego's screaming, stupid, stupid, shut it down, now, close it up. Right? Because if you open your heart all the way, what's the fear? I'm going to get hurt. I'm going to be taken advantage of. We even have a fear that we get stupid. Like we open our heart and our IQ drops. right? Have you ever been stupid in a relationship and it's like, I opened my heart and my IQ went down by 50 points. It was the saddest thing that ever happened, right? So that's the spiritual part. It's pure spirit. It's love expressing. Now, what's the human aspect of love? Anybody want to take a shot at it? What's the human aspect of love? How do you know in physical human interaction when that person loves you? They bake for you? Yes, that's what I think too. They bake for me. They what? Oh, behavior. Right. What, I think baking was better, but behavior is good too, right? Right? What I want you to see is the human way that we demonstrate love is serving. Right? When I'm serving somebody, it's an act of love. And over again, what I want you to see, there are two things I want you to see today, is I want you to open your heart more and serve more. Love more, serve more. Love more, serve more. Because when it comes to human form, our call is to serve each other. Let me go to Scripture. Luke 10. There it is. And behold, the lawyer stood up to put him to the test, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? And he said, what is written in the law? How do you read it? And he answered them, that you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And he said to him, you've answered rightly. So do this and you will live. But then the lawyer wanted to get sneaky. So he desired to justify himself, and he said to Jesus, but who is my neighbor? And Jesus replied, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell upon some robbers who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going by along the road, and when he saw him, he passed over to the other side. And likewise a Levite, when he'd come to that place, saw him and passed over to the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed along, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. And he went to him, and he bound up his wounds, and he poured oil and wine upon them. And he sent him upon his beast, and he brought him to the inn, and took care of him. And the next day, he took out 2 denarii and gave it to the innkeeper, saying, take care of him, and whatever else he needs, I will repay you when I come back. Which of these 3 do you think proved the neighbor to the man who fell to the robbers? And he said, the one who showed mercy to him. And Jesus said to him, go and do likewise. Okay, so in Jesus' time, who were the most perceived, the most spiritual? The priest. Do you know what the Levites did? They were the ones that served the priest. They were the tribe that was dedicated to serving the priest. You know what the Samaritans did? They were the ones that just, they were not the, I don't even know how to say it. They were not the ones that people respected. And so who was the one that actually served the man in his hour of need? The Good Samaritan. Now, in our culture, when you say the Good Samaritan, we have a whole hospital here named Good Sam, right? When you say the Good Samaritan, we think of that term as being like a term of value, of respect. But in Jesus' time, Samaritan was not a term of value and respect. It has only become that over the last 2,000 years. In Jesus' time, this was the people that you didn't respect. But was Jesus a tribalist? No, he was a universalist. He didn't believe in groups or sects or conditional or treating one group one way and one group this way. He believed that all people were God's children. And he believed all people were deserving of being helped and over again. So not only are we called to open our heart, but we're actually being called to be in service to others. Love more, serve more. Will you say that with me? Love more, serve more. One more time. Love more, serve more. Now, does your ego hate this? Yes. Because the people that you're called to serve the most are the people you don't want to serve. Right? And your ego will give you 100 reasons why you can justify not serving them. But what did Jesus say? He said, if a man asks for your shirt, give him your coat. If he wants you to go 1 mile, go 2 miles. His expectation is that you would go above and beyond the call of duty. Now, does that mean if you're serving somebody, they may take advantage of you? Yes. Right? That's given. That sometimes you're going to help somebody and they're not going to fully appreciate it. They're not going to say thank you. They're not going to think that you're the most wonderful person in the world. And you do it anyway because you're connected to the infinite. It's your job that as I open my heart more, as I love more and serve more, am I blessed more? Yes. That every time we can move beyond our ego limitations, we become more blessed. Over and over and over again. I told you I have a great neighborhood. I live in a great neighborhood. And so recently, I was leaving to go do a funeral, and I pulled my car out of the driveway, and the lady across the street from me was trimming her bushes. And she's like Edward Scissorhands when it comes to trimming her bushes, man. Her bushes just look fabulous, right? So I rolled out my window, and being a smart aleck as I am, I said, oh, you're doing such a great job. When you finish there, why don't you just come across the street, right? And I think, funniest guy in the whole world, right? Right? So I drive away, and I come back, and my bushes look like elephants. And no, I mean, but they're immaculate. I mean, it looks like she got a ruler and a level, right? My bushes are perfect, right? And I said, Lori, thank you so much. You didn't need to. I was teasing you. And she goes, I knew you were going to do this funeral, and it's something I could do to help right now. Was that the sweetest thing? So yesterday morning, she got up early, and I could hear, I could hear her machinery going at her bushes. And I said, well, I'm going to have to get up and go out there because I do not want her to come across the street and do my bushes twice. That would just be a challenge for me to receive that much. So I get up, I go across, and I start doing my bushes, and we're talking, and we're saying, is this straight? And, we're working on her. And did I mention I love my neighborhood? I love my neighborhood, right? So she finishes, and she's starting to rake up, and I'm still going. And she said, Richard, it's hot, and I got an appointment. I'm going to leave all my trimmings here, and because I've got an appointment, and I need to go home, get in and take a shower. And I said, well, I don't think the neighborhood police is going to come and cite you for having your shrubs not fully picked up. So, a little while later, I see her car drive away. And just as her car's driving away, I'm rolling my trash can across the street, and I pick up all of her stuff, and I sweep, and I make sure that her house looks perfect, right? And I think, this is so great. I'm talking about service tomorrow. I now have a story to tell. Right? But the reality is, how good does it feel when you serve somebody? It feels fabulous. There's studies that show that if somebody sees somebody committing a generous act, that even if they don't know that person, even if they don't know anybody involved, that seeing someone commit a generous act actually encourages them to serve and to give and to be more generous. Love more, serve more. Together, love more, serve more. Right? So here we are in the world right now, and the only thing that is keeping us from healing the planet is us. The only thing that's keeping us from loving more and serving more is us and our ego and our story and the fact that we don't want to do it. Because we're afraid we're going to get stupid or be taken advantage of, or that nobody's going to notice, or nobody's going to care, or I shouldn't have to give to them. I gave to them already once. And we go into our story and our drama, and we stay stuck. Over and over and over again, what I want you to see today is that our job is to love more and serve more. And the final piece, the bridge between these two worlds, the spiritual world and the physical world, is our words. And our words have the ability to either lift people up or to tear them down. And that we either can use our words when our heart is open and people can feel empowered and uplifted because our words make a difference. Or our words can be one more strike against them, where they just feel more beaten up and more taken advantage of and less than they ever have before. Then I want you to really look today how you're using your words to uplift the people around you. Are you inspiring them? Are you loving them? Is your heart open? Because over and over again, our words matter. Let's go to the last. There it is. I want that slide. So the three things I want you to look at today. Love is open hearts, right? Because it's only when our heart is open that we download the infinite love of God. Love is acts of service over and over again, serving those around us who need us, who want us, we can make a difference. And three, it's words that uplift. Can I tell you a story that really changed my life? So I grew up in the church. I was in YOU, and when I went into my 20s, I started working with the teenage ministry in the church that I grew up in Southern California. And I built up a youth ministry that was so large that they gave me a job of working with all the youth ministry, all the teenage ministries in Southern California, Arizona, and Southern Nevada. And I would go and I would work with churches on developing teen programs. Well, did I mention I was 25? Well, at 25, sometimes what you think is an appropriate thing, the ministers didn't think was an appropriate thing, right? So I let the kids do this thing, and I didn't think it was a big deal. And it got back to the ministers, and the ministers had a hard time with it. And to this day, I don't even remember what it is, but I remember that more than a few ministers were upset with me for doing this. So there was a meeting of the ministers, and I was invited to attend. And I was sure they were going to give me a promotion, right? And my minister came, and I thought he was going to be there to support me. And so he launched us into this thing by saying, with words of love, and then spent about 5 minutes slamming me, right? And it was that moment that I realized that words without an open heart aren't love. Does that make sense? That it only really counts if your heart is open. Then people feel the love. If they don't feel the love, the chances are it's because it's probably not there. Your mouth is probably moving, but there's not love happening here. And so over and over again, what I want you to see is that the bridge that links spiritual love to our human experience is words. But words can either uplift or they can tear down. And we have the power in our life to speak the words that uplift the people around us because they need it. How would your life have been different if you had had people in key moments in your life who just spoke words of affirmation? How would your life have been different in the moments where you needed somebody to believe in you if there was somebody who was just whispering in your ear you could do it? Words matter. They make a difference. Love is open hearts. Because without an open heart, all the words you say don't count. Acts of service and words that uplift. Will you join with me in prayer? And I invite you to open your mind, your heart, your soul to the activity of God that is right here, right now. That there is only one presence, one power, one God, one good, manifesting through all of us. Today we stretch ourselves. We stretch our heart. We stretch our intentions. We stretch our acts of service. We stretch our words to be a healing force in the world. So in all things we look to God. And in all things we give thanks that we are so richly, divinely blessed. And so it is. Amen.